You got one?
Hey guys, there are 3 positive attributes to owning and running a rear handle circular saw. One is that you've got that extended reach to get across sheets of plywood, whatever. And the other 2 are blade left visibility for our right-handed users and certainly power or more cutting power. I'm Rob Robillard, and in this head-to-head test, we examined 6 saws from 5 major manufacturers. We're gonna tell you who the best 7 1/4 inch circular saw is. Now these saws range from 18 to 60 volts, single and double battery packs. We devised our series of tests to determine which one was the best saw. Now if you want to learn more about this test and our testing methods and our criteria, specs, models, go read the article at Toolbox Buzz. The article always has more detail, testing criteria, specs than the video does. We even share our personal opinions and quotes in the article. All right, testing format. So our team looked at a total of 7 criteria. Each of the criteria was ranked individually or independently, and the overall best cordless rear handle circular saw was determined using our combined test results. Now we looked at accuracy and line of sight of the saws, and we looked at the cutting speed, obviously through cutting 2 layers of plywood as an indicator of the motor's performance. An overall comparison of features and specifications was performed. We compared weight of the tools, bare tools. We compared decibel readings, treating all the saws the same testing. Price, we evaluated bare tool price at the time of this video. We look at best value. We talk about best value based off of our performance and cost. Now, prior to the testing, all of these circular saws were fitted with a task-specific 24-tooth Milwaukee saw blade. The use of uniform blades throughout this testing just helps us preserve the uniformity of our testing by removing external testing variables. And our team likes these blades because they cut exceptionally well, they deliver pretty good life on them, they have good precision, and they cut cool. They have cooler cuts. So let's move right into accuracy line of sight testing. We asked an experienced operator, Pro Tool user, to run every saw in a freehand cut of plywood and framing lumber to rank the tools on this performance. The saws were checked 90 and 45 degree bevels for accuracy, before cutting, after cutting, during cutting. We purposely had a single operator execute this for better control of our test standardization. Our assumption was that multiple users might slightly have different techniques and maybe twist a little, and therefore it's better to use a single operator. We also tested the accuracy of the scales and slots in the bases of the plate of the saw. And we looked at accuracy in that category as well. And then we ranked the accuracies of these saws in the following areas. We looked at the scale slot accuracy, the bevel accuracy at 45, cross cut at 90 degrees, and then we ranked it all. Now, unfortunately, the base plates on all of the saws, except the flex, were disappointingly inaccurate. Bevel settings were decent across the saws and certainly accurate enough for framing out of the box. All right, performance. The winner of our performance testing was Dewalt, the flex volt saw. And we looked, plywood is a frequently cut material in the job, and we used an AccuCut sled, Craig makes this, to evaluate the tool's cutting speed, to hold the speed consistent. And we cut through 2 layers of plywood for our test. For each tool, 3 runs were completed and an average time was average, and we used that time. The fastest saw was at Dewalt Flex Volt, and it cut an impressive time at 10.3 seconds. Just about a 3-second gap to the second place winner, which was Makita's 36 volt, which was 13.1 seconds. Third place came to the Makita 40 volt rear handle saw at 14.8 seconds. Now this Craig AccuRide sled we used was operated or by a pulley, a weighted pulley. And the pulley force was provided by a weight pull system that basically pulls the saw through the material at a very consistent force. And there are 2 main benefits for this reasoning behind it. First, it allows consistent force to be applied to each saw the same way every time. as opposed to having an operator push. Secondly, by allowing for natural resistance as opposed to forcing or pushing through the cut, we're able to get a constant cutting speed on the motors. It allows a saw to attempt to cut at a more natural maximum speed based on the RPMs of the motor and just consistent pull. This also underscores the importance, for us anyway, of using the same blades on all the saws. Now that Craig sled I talked about, it held the circular saws securely, and the aluminum track that it rode on basically provided that parallel straight line cutting. The saws were in contact with the sled, and the sled was in contact with the wood throughout the test. During the course of testing, the fixture performed with no issues. We used automatic mechanical switches, timers, and a timer, and we did that in lieu of a stopwatch, and that removes a human error element for a handheld stopwatch, right? All of the tools selected for this test were members of the 18 to 60 volt high performance line by each manufacturer. Batteries used fell between 120 and 180 watt hour capacity. Now, with many manufacturers kind of electing to up the voltage of their flagship lines, like Dewalt's 60 volt flex volt, or Makita's 40 volt XGT, or Metabo HPT's 36 multivolt, it is extremely limiting to narrow a field of competition down to a specific voltage range, 18 volts, 36 volts. Tool manufacturers are experiencing with different voltage ranges, bus bar materials, internal electronics, battery configurations, to try to maximize the energy transfer from their battery system to the tool's ultimate performance output. Each tool is a complex system with a lot of variables. The only thing that we at Toolbox Buzz attempt to quantify is the measurement of the tool's ultimate performance. And in this case, that was speed of cut, our performance test. One piece of information in a variable we can control is the relative battery size across the competition. So to compare one manufacturer's battery capacity to another, the voltage and the amp hour rating, it needs all be considered. So multiply that together, you get a watt hour capacity of the battery. When we looked at watt hours, we found no correlation between watt hour and performance. In fact, the Dewalt, as tested, had the lowest watt hour battery at 120. Okay, let's move on to features. The winner of the features was the Makita 40 volt saw. Trying to compare tool features from different brands is never easy, and the truth is, the devil's in the details, and thus a feature assessment really is necessary. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the best, the entire team used all the tools in a variety of cutting scenarios. We included ripping LVL, cutting stringers, beveling, ripping 2x stock, cutting plywood, plunge cutting, all to test the rate the features of these saws. Now, features that we looked at were blade change, the spindle lock. We looked at the bevel settings, depth of bevel, blade depth adjustments, and the depth of saw, the trigger, the grips. We looked at electric brake, sight line and scales, rafter hooks, and weight and balance, but we covered that. So let's talk about blade change. The Makita 40 volt was the best one out of that, and to ensure quality of cut, look, productivity in a job site, you need a new and appropriate blade to get the cut application done. Now, blade replacement, it should be simple, safe, and convenient. And we swapped out the blades on the 5 saws, and there were no real clear standouts, but that Makita 40 volt was super easy. It has super easy to push and engage spindle lock. The 40 volt blade locked faster than any of the other saws and had more detents on the arbor lock, resulting in less spinning of the blade to lock the spindle, aka, in other words, easier to change the blade. The Dewalt was a close second. The flex saw took third because the team all felt that the dust chute hindered accessing that spindle button. Kind of got in the way a little bit. Once you get to the spindle lock, though, it's solid, smooth feel to it, with plenty of detents in it. Milwaukee's plastic spindle lock feels a little bit cheap, has a little bit too much slop, but the detents were decent and the lock was good. Metabo HPT earned 5 points because they did not have an onboard wrench. Every saw manufacturer should be able to figure that one out. The Metabo HPT had the easiest to actuate spindle lock with a ton of detents. But because no onboard wrench, it automatically got bumped down. Best bevel adjustments went to both Makita saws. Makita does a nice job with their fit and finish. The major performance indicator for this category was the bevel scale and the adjustments, and allowed a user to accurately and rapidly set the bevel. Flex allows for a 56 degree bevel, but the bevel action stinks because the movement's wicked stiff. The bait plate pivots on a pivoting rivet style connection, and that's going to loosen over time, we think. Flex uses a selector switch to detent 22.5, 45, and 56 degrees. The rest of the saws only bevel to 53 degrees. So Flex has them on that. The Dewalt has a very smooth lever with ball detents at 22.5, 45, and 53. And while this saw was tight, our experience is that over time in the field, the ball detents get a little sloppy over time. Makita saws have a positive bevel selector at 22.5, 45, and 53 as well, and we found that the 40 volt saw was easier to adjust and smoother than the 36 volt saw. Makita had no stops, I should say. Real nice scale, but it's tough. It's tough to hunt for 45 degrees. We've talked about this in the other head-to-heads. It would be nice if it had a little bit of a detenter or some sort of stop there. Metabo HPT has a very rudimentary scale, and you really must shift the bevel lever to get to that 53 degrees. The team felt that the action and adjustment on the saw was kind of a sloppy mess. Moving on to blade depth adjustment, the winner again, both Makitas. Our team agreed that establishing the depth should be done on a workpiece, right? By checking with the blade up against with the blade, going through the material just a little bit. Still though, the gauge should be able to set the depth fast and accurately, right? That's why it's there. Makita has a really nice action coupled with a large non-slip rubberized lever with no sharp edges. Metabo HPT does not have a paddle lever. Instead, they opted with this kind of inline rounded pointed lever. There's no arrow on the depth of scale for the depth setting, and it just wasn't intuitive. You can figure it out, not intuitive. We feel like the tool, any tool most users get used to, and they will accommodate. And I feel it's the same way with this. Milwaukee has a large paddle style lever. The Flex has more friction, I should say, than we felt it should have. The scale does not have an arrow, and it was not easy to read, and also not intuitive. Although we all agreed that no one really looks at these scales, but they do put them on there. The Flex does offer the deepest cut at 90, and they cut at 2 5/8. Metabo HPT, I think it's 2 7/16. The Dewalt has a paddle lever that actuates well. It's a longer lever and allows more user leverage. One weird detail with it though is that lever is flipped the opposite way as the other saws. Had that orientation of the lever been reversed, we feel that, I don't know, it'd be a little bit easier to actuate when using the saw. The best trigger and grip went to the two Makita saws. So they both had very comfortable switches, easy to depress and hold, hold on, and with no hot spots. So the most comfortable grip on the tool went to the Dewalt and Flex saw. The Dewalt has a little bit of a pinch point at the bottom of the trigger, and if you're in the habit of gripping the saw low, you'll be sure to find it. The Flex has a nicely shaped round over trigger profile, resulting in no hot spots. One feature on the Flex that kind of annoyed some of the crew was that the trigger does not depress or recess all the way into the grip of the handle like the other saws. It sticks out a bit. Some guys didn't like that. One finger sticks out than the rest. Many of the team just found it annoying, a little bit uncomfortable with longer use. Milwaukee has a squared off trigger with sharp edges, and it's prone to some hot spots, necessitating some re-gripping periodically. And as far as grips went, the team felt that they were all comfortable and there was nothing to note. Other than the Flex has that kind of an aggressive grip material that potentially could be uncomfortable long-term use. Okay, let's move on to sightline base plate scale. The winner of that was Milwaukee. No matter how well a tool feels in your hand when you're using it or how long your run time is, all of that, if you can't see what you're doing or cutting, you can't expect good results. So nothing is going to kill productivity like having to swap sides, searching for your sightline to sightline, or lining your blade up to your cut line or whatever. The Milwaukee won the best sightlines due to its low profile guide and just a clear view of the blade. The Makita XGT and the Flex saw came in last because of their dust ports placed on the motor side of the guard, just in front of that auxiliary handle. So it's kind of blocks the sight line a little bit. And the other saws were all similar with a larger guard and slightly less clear view of the blade, especially from the motor side. Standout features. There was a few standout features that we wanted to kind of share with you. So the Makita 36 volt saw is the only saw with a non-tool battery gauge, easy to see and use. However, the rafter hook does block access to the batteries. The Metabo HPT can also run off their adapter, allowing you to do AC/DC. You can plug it in. You know, you can get a few more cuts at the end of the day, or I don't know, maybe you set up a cutting station and you just, you know, constantly going throughout the day with zero downtime and zero battery charge, upcharge, stuff like that. Additionally, that does have a 2 7/16 depth of cut. The rafter hooks on these saws all varied from large open hooks to kind of a stepped style, like where you step for a single or a double or LVL. All the hooks were easy to open and they're pretty fairly durable. We had no issues with them. The rafter hook hinge socket on the Flex, Metabo HPT, Milwaukee, Dewalt were a plastic ABS kind of reinforced nylon material. The Makita saw is built with metal. Looks much more durable, but we didn't do any hook testing. Overall, the Makita has the nicest design and smooth blade guard. It's a comfortable saw to use, solid, well-designed features and finishes. We looked at weight, and the weight was the Metabo HPT. Look, rear handle saws, they're heavy. The lightest rear handle saw was that Metabo HPT, and it weighed 8.6 pounds, bare tool. Second was Makita 36 volt, 10.1 pounds. And if we jumped all the way to the heaviest saw, the brick, it was the Dewalt Flex Volt. It weighs 11.05 pounds. We then went to decibels. We evaluated noise, and the winner was the Makita 36 volt. And look, for noise, 90 decibels is what OSHA allows for an 8-hour exposure. Otherwise, you have to wear hearing protection. As that exposure reaches 95 and higher, the limits drop, right? So all of these saws absolutely require hearing protection. The quietest saw of the rear handles was the Makita 36 volts, and that was 97.8 decibels under no load conditions. All the saws were treated the same. Second place was Metabo HPT at 98.9 decibels, and the loudest saw was that DeWalt coming in at a noisy 103.5 decibels. All right, let's move over to price. Winner was Metabo HPT. The cost of a tool can sometimes dictate whether it's purchased. Bottom line. We can all agree that price is a significant factor when purchasing tools, especially to those who are new to the trades. We also recognize brand loyalty or battery platform cost-saving consistency, right? You save money by sticking to a platform. We used a bare tool price to compare these tools at the time of this video testing. The least expensive saw of our whole test was that Metabo HPT at $199, followed by the Makita 36 volt at $233. The most expensive saw on the market at the time of our video here was the Milwaukee M18 coming in at $269. All of these rear handle saws can be purchased at Acme Tools, and we've added some purchase links in the video description below. Please check them out. Help support the site. Okay, who has the best overall, best-in-class rear handle cordless circular saw? That would be the Makita 36 volt. We evaluated all areas, naming the overall best-in-class saw. Performance, design, value, all of that leading the way. Finally being able to choose the tool that excels in its primary role, provides high quality features that improve performance, and does so at a pretty reasonable cost, right? So intangibles frequently play a role in tiebreakers in any one area, but because the overall rank, best in class, is basically individual judgments of everything we look at, our decisions are usually pretty objective, given our head-to-head results. So the Makita 36 volt saw scored 7 total points. Came in tops in accuracy, second in the rest of the categories. That was performance, weight, features. The Makita 40 volt scored second with 8 points, taking that second place. It came in first in accuracy, third in performance and weight. Third place went to the Dewalt Flex Volt, 12 points. Crushing performance in our performance testing, second in accuracy, and third in features. Let's move on to my favorite category, best value, and that's a category where we compare performance to cost. A lot of people, it's important to them, especially if they're first starting out in the trades, Not so important if you're brand loyal or you got a battery platform that you're purchasing and building out. But the best value saw was the Makita 36 volt. Came in least inexpensive at $209, and it performed the best in the head-to-head testing to take the overall best rear handle circular saw. So hats off to Makita for not only coming in tops in the head-to-head, but being the best value saw as well. So to conclude, at the end of the day, the decision to go rear handle cordless circular saw is driven by your field cutting needs. We strive to provide you with the most comprehensive facts available in order to give you the most thorough data that we can. So our team basically was committed to a substantial amount of time and effort to give you the best 7¼ inch rear handle circular saw. And we did that through our analysis. These tests and evaluations are difficult, they're time consuming. Ultimately, we're limited in the amount of time and coverage we can do on these saws. And we're not a professional testing organization, so we're limited in that, and we have limited equipment. We can't test these saws for long periods of time to assess their durability. We just don't have time for that. Ain't got time for that, right? And we can't possibly test every possible use that you'd like to see. Why didn't you cut a railroad timber? Why didn't you cut a brick wall? Most people have inquired about how we get or arrive at our final rankings. Comparing tools can be done in a variety of ways, as previously mentioned. So the good news here is, it doesn't matter how we got there. We shared all of our data, and it's public. You can see it. You can grade the tools any way you want based on how they performed. You don't agree with the ranking or one of the scores? Don't worry about it. Just remove it from the ranking of the matrix and reorder it and rank it the way you want. At the end of the day, we just want to provide you as much information as possible, guys. So thanks for following along. Please check out the rest of our head-to-head testings. We've done a bunch of them. And I also want to mention that this video was sponsored by Acme Tools. For 3 generations, Acme Tools has been a family-owned business that focuses on the pro contractor. They also service woodworkers and DIYers and other folks, but they have a huge selection and a huge stock of tools, ton of tools, from a wide array of manufacturers. They also offer free shipping, super fast processing, easy processing, and great price guarantees. Also, Acme has some pretty sweet package deals, but you got to look for those. You got to pay attention to those. So check out acmetools.com. If you enjoyed this video head-to-head, please comment. We love hearing from you guys. And also check out our Toolbox Buzz, our new Toolbox Buzz t-shirts in the video, below the video description in the store below. I'm Rob Robillard. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.